pop up and most probably not hear this, please visit us on the La Maison de Rouge Periscope if you'd like to participate. But this will be up for 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What?
Sorry.
Well, I just connected everything.
Yeah, we're all here.
We're all connected. Awesome.
Yay.
Just let this.
People are gonna roll in.
Give it a few minutes for everyone. I'm wearing leather, so I'm making all the leather noises. You're wearing leather. No. So we're going, before we do introductions, we like to do our general, if you have a question, please leave it to the end. We do have a Q&A section, so just write it down. And also, we aren't going to show you our feet.
So don't ask.
And all the other requests of us doing something like Dom Monkeys, we're not doing. So, you can pay for that. All right, so I guess we'll start with introductions. I am Lucy Sweetkill.
And I am Dia Dynasty, and we are La Maison de Rouge. And today we have Mistress Couple with us. Hello. Here she is. So thanks for joining us. We wanted to maybe have you introduce yourself, and because we know your name, so tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also include what we're trying to get into the habit of is your name, any titles that you like to go by, and then your pronouns, and what you do.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Mistress Couple, or Couple if we are not in the dungeon, and my pronouns are she or they, and I am the head mistress of La Domaine SMR, which is the world's oldest BDSM training chateau, and we can talk a little bit about what that means. And also, now we function as a bed and dungeon, and we're actually the people who coined the term bed and dungeon. So people can come up to upstate New York, where we are, and rent a guest room for the night, a kinky guest room, with a St. Andrew's cross and an erotic library in it, and then also rent our dungeon space to either take lessons from the staff members at La Domaine, to do professional sessions with us. Other options are they can be served by the La Domaine submissives. They can have dinner, wonderful 4-course gourmet meals with us, which are served by our submissives, which give them a chance to show off what they've been working on in their training. And we also offer monthly workshops and parties from May through November. We do weekend intensives. We teach at colleges, and I actually just wrote a book, so I'm a very busy lady.
Yes, you are.
And we'll definitely get into your book as well. But we want to get a bit of the history of Couple.
Sure.
Which is how, I guess we'll start with how did you become a dominatrix?
It's been a long journey for me. I actually started at La Domaine 8 years ago as a submissive. And I was brought there by my friend Mistress Blunt, who we've been friends for a very, very long time, even before we were both involved in BDSM. And Mistress Blunt knew that I had been trying to get one of my boyfriends at the time to give me a birthday spanking. And he totally chickened out and just couldn't go through with it. And we were at a girls' night, and I was complaining to everybody about how it didn't happen, and I'd been really looking forward to it, and Blunt stayed behind after everyone left, and was like, if you really want to get this spanking, I know somewhere where you can go.
Such a good friend.
Yes. And so at that point, I learned that she was secretly, unbeknownst to most of our friends, training at La Domaine as a mistress in training. And so she brought me there to a La Domaine party for my very first BDSM experience ever, which is definitely jumping right into the deep end.
Yeah.
I had no idea what BDSM really was at all. And I walked into an old guard, high protocol household where there were naked slaves, collared, sitting in posture on the floor, serving the doms who were all eating at the table. And I immediately was totally intrigued. And I was just like, I can tell that I don't understand what's going on here at all.
Yeah.
Especially because the two slaves that I walked in on that day, one was an African American woman who was in her 40s, and in a house full of all white doms. So I was like, okay, what's going on there? Clearly there's something that I don't understand here. Yeah. And the other person who was kneeling directly next to her on the floor was an older cis male white guy who was like very military. He just had a military vibe all over him. Yeah. And so these two people were equal next to each other, naked on the floor, serving this household of people. And I was like, what is happening? This is fascinating to me. Yeah. So I sat on the couch just totally wide-eyed the entire night, and one of the slaves kept coming up to me and asking if I was okay. It was Slavin, if you know him.
Yeah.
So
that beats Slavin.
Yeah. So he's very sweet, you know, and he kept coming up and saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I must have looked totally just like flabbergasted. And after dinner, they took all of the slaves downstairs and played. And I saw my first whipping scene. And
do you remember who was getting whipped?
Yes, it was Chips, the African American woman, and she was being whipped by 3 doms. I forget exactly which ones, but I remember there were 3, and they were bullwhipping her in the cunt. And every time they would make contact with her cunt, she would do a kegel and grab the whip, like hold the whip.
Oh, that's impressive.
And so that was my
pussy power.
It was, and that was my introduction to kink. So I'm sitting there like on the couch, clenching my legs, and, you know, whoa. And eventually, she had a huge orgasm. She was granted permission to come. She had a huge orgasm from being whipped in the pussy, and immediately started crying. And all of the doms dropped their whips immediately and went around and wrapped their arms around her. And I think this is the first time I'm telling this story where I haven't gotten emotional. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I know that this is a safe place to explore. Yeah. And I really want to. I was definitely intrigued at that point. So the next morning, I took a shower and did not put my clothes back on and waited for somebody to notice, which did not take very long at all.
You're like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah. And so I was waiting out in the living room at La Domaine, and Master R and Mistress Colette, who were the headmaster and headmistress at the time, noticed, asked me to come into their quarters, taught me their slave posture, and said, like, it seems like you belong here. It seems like you want to be a part of this household. And there was just an immediate connection between the 3 of us. And they also said to me at that moment that they saw that I had a great capacity for dominance and asked me if I wanted to be a mistress in training at La Domaine. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? No, definitely not me. I'm not dominant at all. I only want to be submissive. Don't ask me to ever do that. It's just not who I am. And I should have known that arguing with the headmaster and headmistress of the house about that at that point should have shown that there was like a little dominance in there somewhere, but I didn't. And it was then that they named me Couple, because I was a ballroom dancer at the time, and that was my profession before this. And they said, you know how you had to learn the followers part first in ballroom dancing and then the leaders part? That's what's going to happen to you in BDSM. And so when ballroom dancers go out for competition, they always have a number on their back. And so my slave name was Couple number 69. And then when I eventually, about a year and a half after my slave training, or into my slave training, I should say, I had a lot of previous misconceptions about what dominance was totally shattered. And I started realizing, oh yeah, I could do this dom thing. So eventually I transitioned and did their mistress in training program, and then through all these crazy twists and turns of life, somehow I'm running the chateau now. Yeah. But the other part of that story is after they gave me my slave name and I went back out into the living room, they had a party later that day. and Slavage showed back up for the party, and I answered the door naked, and he looked totally shocked. And I was just like, "Are you okay?" And so he totally fell apart, and now that's our, I'm going to keep flashing everyone. That's our little inside joke, so we always go up to each other at the La Domaine parties, and we're like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Yeah.
So do you think through your kind of, the slave and training stuff that you were going through, how long were you doing that before you sort of transitioned and kind of, would you say, did you, obviously through that was your introduction to going, okay, you know what, I found my power, I found my dominance?
Yeah. I was very naturally submissive at that time, and I think everyone in my life was really taking advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand my submission. As you know, it happens to so many people that we work with now. And so when I first became a slave at La Domaine, my master and mistress said to me, we're the only people who get to abuse you anymore. You know, nobody gets to abuse you anymore. Your family doesn't get to abuse you. Your boss doesn't get to abuse you. Friends don't get to abuse you. And learning who deserved my submission and who didn't ended up being an incredibly empowering thing to me in my life. And I was at the top of my career in the ballroom dance world. It was something that I had wanted to do since I was a child, and that I had worked my way up in the field. I was competing internationally, and one day at the studio, I was cleaning in the back room, and I started having a panic attack, and I realized that I was slaving for these people.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm quitting my job. And the next day I quit. And that empowered me to start seeking out other things in my life in the city. And I went to a munch, and I met this woman who became my first submissive. And at that point, when I met her, I was attracted to her, but I was like, uh-oh, we're both subs. What's going to happen here? And then the more we hung out, I was like, wait a second. I could totally dom her. I could show her some of this stuff that I've been learning at La Domaine. And so as they do sometimes, you know, when I'm with certain people, they bring out one side of couple more than the other. And so once I started playing with this woman, I'm really glad that she was my first slave, because she was incredibly challenging to train, and she was a good person to learn on. Like, she would do things like, every time I tied her up, she would try to struggle out of it and get free. And then she was like, well, when you get better at tying me up, I won't be able to escape. She was a kind of a brat. She was a total brat. She was a total brat. And so I was like, okay, I need more help. So then I started doing the mistress training at La Domaine, and it kind of progressed from there. And then I had been planning to go back to school for dance therapy, and that summer the previous headmistress of La Domaine left. She got engaged and moved out west, and she was supposed to take over La Domaine from Master Art, who had been running it since 1993, and he was starting to have some health problems. And he told me one day, like, you know, couple, I'm really sad about this, but I think that I have to close La Domaine because there's nobody to take it over for me. And I was like, no, this can't happen. Like, this place is far too important to me. It's changed my life. It's empowered me so much. And I know there are so many other people that's important too. So I don't have to go back to school until September. This was in April. So I was like, let me just come for the summer and help you do sessions for the summer until you find somebody new. But don't ask me to be the headmistress, because it's way too much work. Don't want that responsibility. Like, it's not going to happen. And through the course of the summer, we interviewed some really, really talented and amazing dominatrixes, and I'm really lucky that they came through, because I got to learn a lot from all of them. But it turned out that most of them just wanted to be in the dungeon, and they didn't want to be doing the innkeeper side of things or the day-to-day business of La Domaine, which is really the not fun part of the job. So by the end of the summer, it was pretty clear that I was the only person who was doing that and who was willing to do it, and that if we wanted La Domaine to stay open, that I was going to be the one to do it. So like a month or 3 weeks before I was supposed to go back to school on a full scholarship and everything, I just canceled it and backed out. And I I am really, really glad that I made that decision. It was one of those leaps of faith that you have to take, you know?
Yeah.
And I always wondered if I would regret it or if I would be glad that I did it. And I'm so happy that I made that decision.
We're happy that you did too.
So speaking of kind of like, you know, how this all started of, you know, wanting a boyfriend to spank you, let's talk about like your sexual history, like your own sexual like exploration. Like, did you find yourself, were you a pretty, you know, kind of sexually, you know, like curious person when you were younger? Like, what do you, when you look back at those experiences and how you came into your sexuality, what does that look like for you? Like, what were some of like these key moments? You know, obviously the one of like wanting your boyfriend to spank you was obviously a big one, but before that, what were other key moments?
So that's the interesting thing, because when I first got to La Domaine, I thought, you know, oh, I'm not kinky. I don't know anything about BDSM. I'm just curious about this. And once I started learning more and more about it, I was like, all these things started popping up. And I'm like, oh, if I paid attention to that, that would have been a red flag. That would have been a red flag. You know, those kinds of things. So I was a very sexually precocious child. Like one of my very first femdom memories actually is on the playground in kindergarten. I had a few friends who were, you know, we'd have like kindergarten through 5th grade would all have recess together. So I had some older friends, and one of my friends found a Playboy magazine in her back of her dad's car on the way to school. She was in 2nd grade. I was in kindergarten. So she came and showed it to me on the playground, and we rounded up all the boys that we liked, and we brought them to like the far end of the playground where nobody could see us, and we opened it up to the centerfold, which is burned into my memory. I will never forget this image of like this woman with a really hairy cunt, spread eagle, like spreading her lips open, and we made all these guys kiss it under threat of getting a wedgie. And
Kiss the pussy.
Nobody found out. Nobody ever talked about it. So yeah, that was one where I was like, yeah, that should have been a clip.
Oh yeah.
And then the balloons, which were a really big part of my sexuality growing up. I was totally like a pillow humper as a kid, and would have like my imaginary boyfriend pillow or whatever. And then after a birthday party, I had brought a balloon home with me, and I tried using that instead of my pillow, and I realized how bouncy it was, and like, I was like, oh, this is good. And there's a whole story about this actually in my book coming out.
Okay.
But I would hide in my closet at night because that was the only light that would stay on past my bedtime. So I would hide in my closet playing with these balloons and bouncing on them and stuff like that. So it will be interesting if my parents decide to read that chapter of my book, because they'll find out what was happening when they would come up to my room and I was in the closet.
Well, like, why
literally
all
in the closet.
Those balloons everywhere?
Yeah.
Oh, it makes sense now. Do they know about your book?
They know about the book. They're pretty excited about it. I asked them not to read 3 specific chapters. The book is a tutorial style book, and like a historical text. It gives a lot of context about what bondage is and where these desires come from.
Before you get into it, can you name, can you give us the title of your book?
Sure. Yeah, the book is called The Ultimate Guide to Bondage. Publisher is Cleus Press, and it comes out on December 11th.
That's my birthday.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wait. Yeah. So, because you were saying it was pushed back.
Yes, it was supposed to come out on November 13th, but there is apparently a nationwide paper shortage, so it got pushed back to December 11th.
Awesome.
But in the back of the book, I tried to put something in the book really for every type of learner and every type of person, whether they were experienced with bondage or just getting into it or had no knowledge of it whatsoever. So in the back of the book, after all of the historical context and psychological context and the tutorials, there are a bunch of erotic essays. It's like kind of the porn icing on top.
Yeah.
And each of the essays corresponds to a different type of bondage.
Okay.
And you get to kind of put yourself into the place of the writer and experience it vicariously through them, whatever bondage experience they're going through. So I wrote 2 of those, one about my balloon fetish and one about a very early on mummification experience I had at La Domaine. So I asked my parents not to read those ones. And then one of my personal slaves wrote one, which is very explicit about some CBT and needle play and things that we do.
Fun.
So again, I was like, you guys, please don't read that. I really think that you don't want to read it. And if you do, I'm not going to discuss it with you. So you're just going to have to like live with the discomfort of knowing that stuff and never getting to discuss it. So hopefully they control themselves and don't read those chapters. But all of you can, and it's very weird to think that people who don't know me are going to know these like very intimate, personal, sexual stories about my life. So that's something that I'll have to get used to, I guess, as I start meeting people who have read the book.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's easier just to kind of forget about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like I have a story about myself that's been published by my best friend. It has some very intimate details that weren't really like public information, but somehow it's out there as a published graphic novel about the poop spoon.
So couple, what are some of like, you know, you went from obviously not thinking you were kinky at all and then realizing that you were doing a bunch of kinky things before you ever knew what kink was. What are some of your kinks you would say are now? Like, what are some of your main kinks and fetish now? What do you enjoy the most? And what are some that you thought you liked or did like but have changed?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, well, balloons kind of fit into all of that. So I'm still in love with balloons. I still love playing with them in all sorts of fetish ways. And I have all kinds of fetish balloons. Shout out to Balloons United. Awesome fetish balloon company. But I just recently developed a latex allergy. So that's been a really interesting psychological experience. I did not know that I had a latex allergy until being fully encased inside of a balloon on my birthday. And after I came out of the balloon, I know what allergic reactions look like. I was totally having an allergic reaction like on my legs.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, fuck. And I had just started taking a new medication. I looked up the side effects of the medication, and less than 2% of women who are on this medication get a latex allergy, and ta-da, I was one of them. So it was very interesting because for about a month after, I was very sick the next day. Like, I was in total adrenal fatigue. My body was, like, shocked. And for a month after that, my psyche was completely repelled from balloons, whereas before it was totally drawn to them and was a compulsion almost. Like, I would see balloons and head over in that direction. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I remember, like, we were at the Pride Festival, and there's a beautiful rainbow made out of balloons, and I totally would have been right up there, taking pictures with it and everything, but there was something in my brain that was, like, holding off from it. And I have an amazing friend who put it into perspective for me by saying, a fetish object or a fetish item is not just a fetish item. It's actually a sexual partner, and the balloons have been your longest sexual partner. So it makes sense that you feel hurt by this partner and you are acting as if your partner hurt you. And so we tried to she was like, what would you do if your partner hurt you but you still loved them? So we tried to figure out ways that I could step back into using balloons. So first one was wearing gloves and interacting with them with gloves. The next one was taking Benadryl and seeing what would happen there and still playing with some balloons, and that was still fine. Then I tied up my slave in balloons and popped them all over him and played in that way. That was still fine. The only real problem is when I absorb the latex proteins through my skin.
Yeah. But if you're wearing clothing, it's okay.
It should be okay. Then we got a latex vac bed, and that was almost impossible for me. I lasted 3 days of resisting and just experiencing it vicariously through putting other people in there and stuff like that. And then the third day I totally broke. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're having a great time. Yeah, it's awesome. Third day I totally broke, and I think it was Slave 9. I made somebody completely mummify me in plastic wrap before I got into it.
You put a body condom on you.
Yes. Yeah, I took a video too. It's ridiculous. Just face covered, like body, everything completely covered. Got in there. It was great. I survived. Didn't have an allergic reaction.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
So,
Yay.
so I'm starting to get back into it. But that's been a really interesting experience of being like totally drawn to something and then totally repelled by it within a very short period of time.
An emotional reaction to your own allergy.
Yeah, I was very sad about it. You know, it was like, again, like I had lost a partner. So I'm glad that that friend helped me and get back to them. Yay! Thank you. Yeah, you were there the next day. She was there helping take care of me after my allergy.
She's a caretaker.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. I've always been really into floggers, especially like matched floggers, Florentine flogging. Dance-wise, like movement-wise, I've always been really attracted to that.
Yeah.
Other types of impact play, like bullwhips and things like that. And I've always liked bondage, but I never considered myself a bondage expert until I finished writing this book. And now I have such a newfound appreciation for bondage that I'm really enjoying exploring with it more. And I was very worried while I was writing the book because I was sitting and writing every day. I wasn't actually practicing BDSM actively. And I was like, oh, am I going to get rusty? What's going to happen? And when I came back to it after taking a break, it was kind of like what happened when I would take a break from dancing. You come back refreshed. And
and you still
because I had been like just thinking about it so much and analyzing it, my bondage skills, I actually think, got a lot better. So that was very exciting to see on the other side.
Yeah, because it almost kind of like you said, it sort of recharges you. Sometimes you're in the habit when you're playing so often of maybe doing certain things, and then you take a step back and you're like, oh wait, and then all these like, it gives room for new creative, like devious ideas, I think, comes up.
Totally.
What prompted the bondage book?
So,
like out of all of the things that you could write about.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting thing. It was not my idea to write. I was in New Orleans, which is my happy place, special place where I go, my special spiritual place. And I was hanging out with some friends one morning over breakfast. We were all chatting, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should write a book. Like I had just turned 30 or 31, something like that. And 30. I had just turned 30. And I was like, you know, I had always planned on writing a book when I was older, but all this amazing stuff is happening to me right now. And if I don't start writing it down, I'm going to forget it all. And I had said something like that in passing to my friends of just like, oh, maybe I should write a book. And in the true New Orleans fashion, at 3 p.m. that day, I checked my email, and I had an offer from Cleus in my inbox asking me to write this book, Ultimate Guide to Bondage.
Wow.
So I took it as a sign from the
Yeah.
New Orleans goddesses, and I was actually really irritated because, number one, I did not consider myself a bondage expert.
Yeah.
And number two, I thought at that time, like, the last thing that the BDSM world needed was another rope bondage book, or bondage book, period. It's just, I felt like our community is so saturated with that right now, especially, like, the rope suspension and rope bondage, and it's beautiful. But I teach a lot of beginner couples, and I see people get so frustrated and because they can't learn the knots right away, and then they're like, oh, bondage isn't for me.
Yeah.
So when they asked me to write this book, and it's part of a series. So Cleus has a series called the Ultimate Guide series. They have the Ultimate Guide to Kink. They have, you know, all sorts of ultimate guides. And so I was like, wow, that's a big topic to cover, the Ultimate Guide to Bondage.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to pitch an idea for the book. And my idea was that rope bondage was only going to be 20% of the book. And the rest of the book was going to focus on all other types of bondage, like psychological bondage, sensory deprivation, self-bondage, physically stressful bondage, like device bondage, costume bondage actually was the most interesting chapter
Costume
for me
bondage.
to write. Yeah, so things like, you know, corsets, the ballet boots, the hobble skirts, and actually
even latex cat suits, you know.
Yeah, and my favorite thing that I pointed out about costume bondage was that I think that the wedding ring is actually like the most socially acceptable hidden form of bondage.
Yeah, that's a really
It's a symbolic bondage.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 So
It's like a collaring.
it really is, and it
is
started
definitely
with hand fasting, which was actually binding the hands together in a ceremony.
Is that Celtic?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, we know what foot binding is.
Yeah, I think that may have been that was Chinese.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Foot binding is.
Yeah, I think I discussed foot binding a little bit in the book as well. But yeah, so
that's
all
really
sorts of
fascinating.
different types of bondage, and they really liked that idea, and they let me take off with it. So that was really exciting. I actually start the book in the womb, like by talking about, I think being in the womb is the universal, like, first bondage experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and some people are definitely still craving that safety and confinement.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Of the womb, yeah.
And that was a very intuitive thing that I felt while before writing the book.
Yeah.
But then when I started researching, all of these things started coming up in my research that were validating those feelings. And I was like, oh, this isn't just an inkling anymore. This is a thing.
Yeah.
So that was very exciting to write about. And I really hope that it just, like, gives some people some new jumping off points to
Yeah,
think
because
about BDSM.
to soothe children, you swaddle them
Mhm.
so that it makes them feel like they're in the womb, and that safetyness and that comfort. And swaddling is basically baby mummification.
And there's actually this
It's like
thing.
so tight.
There's a thing now
Like,
called, like, adult swaddling. Do you know about this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like a
Not
fad in
surprised.
Japan,
Oh, right.
and because they say that it calms people down, just like
Yeah.
we know that bondage does.
Yeah.
Where these people will come into your work at the end of the day and, like, actually swaddle you in a fetal position inside of a sheet. There's a special way to tie it. There's a tutorial for that in the book. And-
really? There is?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. That really broadens, like, the meaning and the, I guess, the the applications of bondage too.
Yeah.
I think so,
Yeah.
and that's what I was trying to do is make it less taboo and more accessible to the
Yeah.
public, and make people realize, like, why does my partner like this, or why am I interested in this image, and be able to access it from maybe, like, a meditation standpoint, or a holistic health standpoint, or a fashion standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many different angles that
There
people
are.
can come in at.
Even
so.
those weighted blankets have kind of like a bondage
Oh, yeah.
feel to
Yeah.
them too, and those are very therapeutic.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you just want that weight on your body.
Yeah.
You know, that feeling of, like,
I
I've
like that.
I've definitely felt where I've had my partner be like, can you just lay on me for a
I've
second?
definitely done that too.
Just, like, lay.
Like,
or-
lay on
just-
top of my
just-
body.
Just lay on me.
Are
And
people
that
worried they're gonna, like,
compression.
squash you guys? Because people are always worried that I'm small, and I'm like, no, just do it.
Yeah,
It's
just
gonna be
do
great.
it. You can roll right off. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine, but, like, that weight is very comforting. That pressure is comforting
It is.
to your
It
body,
is.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. After,
Yeah, the X-ray blanket at the dentist.
I hate that thing.
yeah,
Oh
yeah. But after writing about those in the book, I actually went out and got myself one, and I have been having the best sleep of my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have restless leg syndrome, so I hadn't been getting, like, full REM cycles for a really long time, and I had just kind of accepted it.
Now I'm gonna go get one.
It's
Thank
so
you.
good.
I hear
Thank you.
sleeping with compression socks too can help with the restless leg syndrome. Like, because I travel so much, I always have compression socks with me. Like, ever since someone introduced me to compression socks, I was like, this is a life changer. Like, it just helps with the flow. You don't swell up, but I hear it's also really helpful if you do have restless leg. So, like, compression in all capacities are great.
Yeah. And
When I'm sick, I burrito myself in my blanket.
Yeah.
Like, I like to be completely cocooned in this, like, burrito to, like, feel,
it's comforting
it's
to
very
feel
comforting.
like embraced by something.
Yeah.
And then when I'm on my mood, I usually like to wear some sort of, like, underwear that holds me in, you know,
Yeah.
because there's that feeling of, like, what if I spill out?
Yeah.
That's
So
really
yeah, that's really great. I bet a lot of people can relate to these kinds of, like, desires to feel, like, embraced and compressed.
Yeah, I hope
It's
so.
not some, you know, like extreme kinky things.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. Last weekend I went to Lake Placid with one of my slaves, and we came across this guy doing a bird of prey show, and I got to hold an owl, which was really exciting.
Whoa.
But he brought a hawk out, and the hawk had a hood on, and he was like telling all the kids about why why this bird was wearing a hood, and it was because it calms the bird down. Yeah, it was a leather hood around his head.
Oh.
And he was saying because it calms them down. Like, he told this whole story about he had been trying to catch this bird, and it kept outsmarting him, like very Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner style. And eventually he finally caught it and like screamed to his friends, like, "Throw me my hat!" And they were like, "What?" And he put the hat over the bird's head, and the bird just like stopped fighting.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And I was like, "Yes, it does the same thing to humans too."
Yeah. You're like, let me tell you.
Exactly. So
let me tell you how this works on people as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went back to the hotel. I put the hood on him and called him Bird Brain for the rest of the night.
Let's just calm you down a little.
Yeah.
So, after writing that book, what are some advice that you would give to those who are new trying bondage and are frustrated with rope bondage? What is some newbie advice for people out there?
My favorite 2 bondage materials for newbies are plastic wrap, because everyone has that in their house already, and it's also discreet if you have kids and stuff like that. You can make up excuses about why you have that in your room. And also bondage tape, which as a dominatrix, I feel like I was snooty about for a while. I was like, "Oh, this doesn't work well enough."
Yeah, you're
or
like,
whatever.
"This is a novelty gift."
Yeah. But then Unbound Babes actually gave me some of their new bondage tape to experiment with while I was writing the book, and I realized, like, it's actually really durable if you use it correctly. You can do a lot of really creative things with it, and you don't have to know the knots yet. So you can learn the basics of a single column tie or a double column tie without having to tie any knots, and see how
with
they
the bondage
work.
tape?
Yeah. So you can just like wrap it around, in one column, one way, or you can do it the other way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's that vinyl stuff that sticks to itself.
It sticks to itself, so it's easy to get out of quickly as well. If like somebody's coming in the room, you can just kind of unravel it. But if you wrap it enough times, it's actually pretty hard to just like break out of.
Right, because the tension.
We
stickier.
actually have some. It was a gift from somebody that liked it being used because it didn't leave like marks in certain ways, and it didn't rip all his hair out, and like
it's good for hairy people.
Yeah,
so,
that's very true.
Yeah, and so he would always bring a bunch. I'm like, sure, if you want to bring it, we'll use it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's one of my 2 of my favorite things for beginners. And another one that I included in the book, a lot of the tutorials in the book are based off of things that you already have in your house. So one of my other favorite things to use is a bed sheet. Really easy, like cheap introduction to a sleep sack or the swaddling or things like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So before we open it up to any questions out there, we always like to ask a little fun question, which is your vices and virtues. What are some of your vices and virtues?
Well, vices, I just went on a shopping spree at Pleasure Chest today, so definitely new sex toys, especially all of the new electronic gadgety ones.
Yeah.
I know,
like the Bluetooth things, or
I just got this really cool one that I can show you called a Lioness.
Hey, pups, can you bring in that bag?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It tracks your the strength of your orgasms.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it.
Yeah. So I feel like I can never wait, because I know that all of these first models are going to be glitchy, and they're going to come out with a second model that's better. But I can never wait.
Yeah, I heard
wait,
about this.
It tracks.
So it says Lioness is a vibrator designed to help you learn about your body's sexual response. Discover things you never knew about your own unique body, what you like, dislike, and blah blah blah. But basically, it has an app that hooks up to your phone. It's a vibrator that goes inside of you, and it has sensors that track your contractions and how strong they are, how long your orgasm lasts, and then it like creates this visual on the app. That if you go to Pleasure Chest, they have all of these screens up right now where you can like send your profile of this to that screen, and like it shows the pattern of your orgasm to people who are shopping at Pleasure Chest. So I don't know, it seems really cool. A lot of women actually earlier this week were asking me about how to give themselves vaginal orgasms instead of clitoral orgasms, and so I was like, okay, I'm getting this toy, I'm gonna bring it home. Like I feel like that's a really great biofeedback tool to use plus fun. So yeah,
because men, I'm sure, measure their loads all the time. So you know,
we did one today.
there were 6 whole drops. What else did you get?
What else did I get? I got a semenette, which I've been really excited about.
So I found these are vices and virtues.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Your exploration of
semenette
sex and
is a squirting dildo.
Yes.
Right?
So it was originally used for people who wanted to do artificial insemination, although also used by perverts as well. And you can use any sort of fluid in there. So like originally, obviously it was used for like semen, which you can still use. You can use urine, you can use water, you can use lube, like really anything. And
is this one that you can strap on?
I think so.
Yeah.
And like I've
It totally is. We need one.
Yeah.
Whoever's out there.
We need one of these.
Be virtuous.
Semenette.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I've never really found a
Because I've seen
dildo that I identified
the
with.
squirting ones, and
Yeah.
some of them are just really cheesy, and I've played with them, but not really good ones. This one's like really nice.
Yeah. And it has like the
and it's
that's
super
little tube.
subtle. Yeah, because the other ones are so bulky, and it just doesn't work really well.
How do it work? It's got a little tube with a bulb that you can squeeze right there, and then the tube goes into the base right here, and then you can,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's very simple mechanics.
And there are different sized bulbs, so you can like change the pressure of the ejaculation.
Yes.
And like I've never really found a dildo that I identified with until I found the inflatable dildos, because I feel like those get harder
And they're
grow.
like balloons.
Yeah, exactly. I was like later. I was like, oh yeah.
They're balloon dicks.
But this one also feels more like
think
a
that's
biocock
pretty.
to me, and
Somehow.
so yeah.
That's a lot.
How all of a sudden
People are
start
interested
showing
in our
dicks.
sex toy. Yeah, I bought like 5 dicks today. I bought one that's a present for someone, so I'm not going to show that. And I got
someone needs
myself
to
a
buy some
womanizer.
dicks.
Have you guys used that?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. I haven't used it
It
yet.
looks a lot like those
actually,
facial things.
so it's funny.
Yes, it does.
I don't know. Can you guys see this? I think we're having. Oh, there it goes.
That's good.
Yeah. I actually used this on somebody else, on a woman. It was really freaking interesting, but it's super weird, and it kind of freaked me out a little, just because it's so precise.
Like when you used it?
I didn't use it on myself. When I used it on somebody
Oh.
else, it was just so like, it's like so precise. And
Is that
it
a
was pretty-
suction?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, weird, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just
Might as
getting
well.
into exploring.
I'm very curious about this womanizer thing, everybody. I'm
Yeah,
very curious.
we need 2 of them. They're not shareable.
No. Also, you need 2, 1 for each nipple.
Wait, that makes 6. We need 6.
We're just like
Cool.
start suctioning everything. That's really awesome.
So out of a really, and then oh, good to know. Yeah, and then Slave 9 was with me, so he has the rest of the things.
Oh, there's
that
more.
Well, he has the rest of them because I was like, you're gonna buy these because you're going to receive all of the pleasure from them. So
I
he
know,
took
we're
those
gonna-
ones home.
Aww.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put a little kinky toy list and put it out there for you all.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
holiday season.
That's
Shop.
true. That's a really
I know.
good idea.
The kinky Christmas list.
Yeah.
you
Which
know?
my book should be on.
Yeah.
It's actually available for pre-order now on Amazon. If you go
Awesome.
on there and search Mistress Couple, it will come up.
Okay.
Awesome, and we'll try to post that out actually because Amazon lets you share those things. So
Oh, yeah,
we'll,
that's a good
we'll
idea.
tweet it out
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
put it on Instagram and stuff like
thanks.
that.
So
Any questions?
while we opened up the floor for questions, maybe you can tell us some more about what you're working on and what you'd like to promote. I remember there was something, trans.
Yes, okay. Trans friends out there, especially cis friends out there, our government is trying to erase trans people right now. It is incredibly fucked up. Obviously, they've been doing a lot of fucked up things towards the LGBT community, but right now it's even more of an emergency. And especially when things like this come out in the news, I think it's incredibly hard for our trans brothers and sisters and friends to process and feel like valued and part of society. And I think it's really important for us all to step up now and to make our voices heard, especially if you have privilege as a cis person, and especially a cis male around your other male friends who might be engaging in toxic conversation about trans people. There are a lot of things that you can do. First thing, obviously, is get out and vote. Second thing is to donate to trans organizations. Yes, thank you. Prop 3 in Massachusetts, vote yes on Prop 3. They're trying to roll back transgender bathroom protections in Massachusetts. So if you live in Massachusetts, please get out and vote on that. And also, this week, Huffington Post and Bustle and a few other journalism outlets have put out lists of things that you can do to help that are already compiled and easy, and just reposting those things is really helpful. Asking your trans friends if they need if they need something, how you can be supportive of them. All of these things, I think, are really, really important as a community to be engaging in and supporting each other right now.
Okay,
awesome.
So we'll retweet those links on the La Maison de Rouge Twitter, and as well as the link to your pre-order on Amazon.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So, couple, can you let us know how? We have a question? Do subs have to come to your place in upstate New York with a dom?
No, you don't have to come with a dom. You can come as an individual or as a couple or as more than a couple. We host groups up to 5 people at a time. And if you're coming as an individual, you can come in for an individual session with one of our staff members. You can also come in for an overnight and just rent the bed and dungeon for yourself and explore by yourself, or hire one of our staff members to work with. We have both pro doms and subs available.
How would they get in touch with you?
Through the website. You can sign up for a call time with me on Calendly, which is just an appointment-making app, because I am very busy. I'm the only person running La Domaine, and it's very hard to reach me. We will definitely play phone tag if you don't sign up for a call time. So either email me or sign up for a call time.
And what's the website? The La Domaine, can you kind of just give the whole website?
Sure. www.ladomaine.com.
Okay.
And then, couple, do you have your own website?
Not yet. It's currently in the works, but it'll be out soon.
Okay,
Nice.
cool. Yeah. And then you are on social media. What are the social media handles for the different social medias?
So Twitter is Mistress Couple, Facebook is Mistress Couple, Instagram is Mistress Couple La Domaine.
Okay.
That would be a great graduation.
It
present
really
to
would.
yourself.
It really would.
And then there's also what we were talking about, these these weekends that you were doing, these long intensives. Do you want to just let people know what that is?
Sure. Yeah, I've been offering these wonderful weekend-long, I call it a dominance development seminar, to help people get in touch with their dominant persona. It's kind of similar to my journey as well, just to help people own their power, figure out who they are as a dom. So many people come into this workshop with preconceived notions of what they're supposed to wear or how they're supposed to act, and I think it's incredibly freeing for them to come to La Domaine and, first of all, meet me and see that they're like, wait, you're so nice. That kind of thing.
That's always what we get.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so nice.
right? And also meet a variety of other DOMs with a variety of perspectives. You know, we have some very sadistic DOMs. We have all sorts of people with different interests, so people can come and learn about themselves, about domination, explore together. And these, thank you. These, the weekends are so sweet. I mean, it's only 5 trainees each weekend, so the group gets really close to each other. They become a support group for each other, moving forward on their dominant journeys. And it's my favorite thing that we do at La Domaine. I think La Domaine is at its best on those weekends.
And then, so when is the next one you have planned?
Well, that's interesting. It's not actually planned yet because if you don't know this, La Domaine is on a mountaintop in upstate New York, and it gets very, very, very snowy in the winter. It's very hard to drive up to the top of our mountain, so we don't host them in the winter time. For the past few years, we haven't, but there's so much demand this year. I'm considering doing one in New York City or somewhere else. So, yeah, stay tuned to the La Domaine website if you want to know all of the good stuff going on at La Domaine. On the contact page of our website, you can also sign up for our newsletter.
There you go.
So any of the fun, amazing workshops or events coming up, you'll get the first information about that.
Awesome. If anybody else has any other questions, if not, Dia, do you have anything?
I don't really have anything right now.
Okay.
I saw somebody asked about the Ookie Cookie game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my
A
god.
while ago.
It may have been someone who was part of the Ookie
Cookie
game.
It might have.
I know that there's definitely somebody here that was a part of the.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't him.
Oh.
It was somebody else who asked.
Well,
you're
interesting.
You'll have to just visit.
Yeah,
La
you'll have to
Domaine.
come to the next La Maison de Rouge hosted party at La Domaine.
There
in order
may
to find
be
out.
something about it on one of our Instagrams.
You just gotta have to research.
Yeah, scroll all the way
Now
back.
you're gonna have to search and figure it out yourself.
Oh,
All right.
yes. Such a fun game.
Okay. Well.
Yes.
Well.
Yes, you know about that one too.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, couple, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who are new to seeing our show, we're on every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And next week, I believe we have a sex educator and sex writer. Her name is Isabel, and we'll be posting about that more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you next week.
Thank you all.
Thanks
Have
for
a good
tuning in.
night.